Welcome to Founders Unfiltered. I'm your host, Freddie Coffey. We want to thank you for joining us today for a special advanced manufacturing-based episode of Founders Unfiltered in collaboration with a couple of our network partners, YBI and MAGNET. We'll be hearing from MAGNET a little bit later on in the episode. And before we introduce our founder, I just want to acknowledge a quick message from our sponsors, Thompson Hine. This episode of Founders Unfiltered is brought to you by Thompson Hine. Thompson Hine's New Ventures Group represents high-growth companies of all sizes in the technology, healthcare, life sciences, consumer product, media, and medical device industries, and a full range of the angel, venture capital funds, corporate innovation groups, and economic development organizations that invest in them. Instead of a confusing hourly rate-based model, the team at Thompson Hine uses its quick launch platform to offer menu-based pricing to help startups grow their teams and take on outside investors. For more information, please visit thquicklaunch.com. All right, now I'm delighted to introduce our featured founder for today, co-founder of Buckeye Mask, Carla Macklin. Carla is very focused on how products can improve health outcomes. She's been an entrepreneur for the last decade, founding companies in the senior adaptive clothing space, as well as technologies that improve communication between rehab patients and their occupational and physical therapists. Most recently, Carla and two partners founded Buckeye Mask Company, an automated manufacturing facility to make reusable face masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Ohio's workforce. Buckeye Mask has sold more than 6 million masks to date and continues to iterate product offerings based on textile science and market trends. Carla is an angel investor in early-stage companies and is involved in numerous community organizations as a trustee as well as a volunteer. Carla holds an honors degree from Williams College in Massachusetts and spends her off hours sewing in the garden or at the local rock climbing gym with her husband and two daughters. We are delighted to introduce Carla Macklin. Carla, welcome.
Thanks, Freddie. Glad to be here.
We're really excited to have you, and we have limited time and a lot to talk about. So I want to kick things off by just talking about your backstory. A lot of things changed, and we'll get to that in March of 2020. But why don't you give me kind of your history and your entrepreneurial journey leading up to March of last year?
Sure. Well, I guess it sort of starts about 6 years ago with the founding of an adaptive apparel company called Allium Adaptive Apparel, where I was trying to leverage my sewing background and some production knowledge and how garments are made and address a need I identified with the senior market. When seniors age, they often have trouble addressing themselves. Often they are in caregiving settings where other people need to assist. And I felt that there were a lot of advancements being made in athletic wear, and they needed to be applied to the senior market, and in particular, flat seaming technology that helps minimize skin abrasion, and then also trying to bring a style component to it. So I founded that company. We were selling direct to consumer on our website and through Amazon for a couple years. After really researching the market and understanding what the needs were with clothing, we brought a couple products to market. And what I was seeing was it was not only difficult to get the volume necessary to bring the per unit costs down in the manufacturing side for specialized apparel that required a large range of sizing, but additionally there was this triad of people involved with the purchasing decision. So sometimes it was the senior herself who knew what she wanted, but often it was a family member who was buying for that senior, and then often the family member really was relying on a professional caregiver like a nurse, occupational physical therapist, some other person in the care triad to make the recommendation of what to buy. So I started to think a little more deeply about that connection of how information about medical products and other resources for rehab transmit from a professional to a patient or their family. And I launched another company called DirectRec, which was an app, a tech product that allows occupational and physical therapists to park all their best ideas for rehab products, other informational websites that they share with patients and their families, be able to use our platform to send those messages directly to the people who are involved, and then also learn from their peers about what they're recommending for different types of diagnoses. So I was doing that right up until March 2020. We launched a web app, and we were getting close to going live in mobile devices when the pandemic hit.
So let's talk about that, because you're creating, this line of apparel that most people aren't able to choose to buy. So you've got a marketing concern there where you're creating advocates out of their loved ones and their caregivers, and that's where the tech solution came from. So tech solution that addresses a really relevant marketing concern in a delicate way, because these people are in a time of crisis. How did you go about building that digital platform to support that idea?
Well, it first started with a lot of research with rehab therapists and other people in the medical community, asking them how they currently transmitted recommendations, and it was often by sticky note or handout that might not end up in the right person's hands. And then after kind of getting a sense of what was how the current practice was playing out, I created a wireframe of an app that I thought might be helpful for those OTs and PTs to be able to park all their great information and then send it out to the patients. And it's certainly an evolving process, but once I had a basic wireframe down, I engaged a development team and had a really lucky find of a team out of the Ukraine, and they were able to build exactly what I asked for and be a good partner, at least initially, when we were launching the web app.
I love that you start in apparel and textiles and manufacturing, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're a tech developer and you've got a wireframe, and that's a big pivot, certainly, but you're creating something where there wasn't something before, which I think is related. Did you mentioned that you teamed up with developers overseas? Did you leverage any local resources when you were working on building out that tech solution?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some great organizations, as you probably led in with, Jumpstart being one of them. They did some financial modeling for me, which was really helpful, and helped me understand what metrics I'm tracking and how. And then Magnet has been a partner of mine for, I guess it's been about 4 years now, where I've leaned on them on basically a monthly basis to be my support system, my reflecting different questions that I have, asking tough questions, and really holding me to task when I needed to go out and find real answers of what I'm seeing in the market and in the data that was coming in. So
we'll hear from Magnet in a little bit. I'm so excited and looking forward to that as well. Okay, so you're developing the app, you've got this idea, you're working to reach this market that you've identified that has a need, you're solving a problem, and then boom, the world has another need.
right.
Right. So back to we jump away from your trajectory of developing this web app to address this, and COVID hits. Tell us how the opportunity / idea for Buckeye Mask came to fruition.
Sure. So right as the pandemic was hitting, I got a call from Magnet to help them address the governor's need for converting the manufacturers in Ohio over to making PPE, so that masks, gowns, swabs, hand sanitizer. Magnet was really involved in a lot of different functions, interfacing with the manufacturing community and trying to get supplies to Ohio during those early months of the pandemic. So I was brought in as sort of the sewing expert and really focused on masks and gowns. I was making patterns for gowns and masks. We were sourcing fabric, trying to make sure that the manufacturers had some kind of guidance. And then we were purchasing 1 million masks in those first couple weeks from the Ohio manufacturing workforce. And quickly it became apparent that despite our wanting to get Ohio-made masks into the hands of Ohioans to get them back to work safely, there weren't going to be enough companies making masks at scale to be able to fulfill the need. And the first 1 million was very painful, and the I forget which department it was, but Ohio was talking about 33 million masks that they ultimately need. And we all looked at ourselves, at me as a consultant to Magnet and the governor's office, and looking around, how do we get this out of the workforce here? So we we ended up engaging a German manufacturer of automated sewing equipment, Adler, and had them design a system that would rapidly and cost effectively produce masks. And then we did some financial modeling on what it would take to set up a business or a line of business within an existing business to scale up and provide millions of masks over the following months. And we shopped that to a variety of different manufacturers in Ohio. We found one in Stitches USA, which was ultimately became a partner of ours. They're out of Amish country, and they were awarded a loan to purchase the equipment. And my other goal was to get National Safety Apparel, a large fourth generation apparel production company here in Cleveland, to take the other portion of the machines and get that loan, because they've already been running Adler machinery for sewing. They're just an excellent production company, and I have had firsthand knowledge with them over the last few years. So we pitched it to them, and they turned it down because they didn't have the bandwidth with their existing safety product line, plus the gowns and the masks that they were making for the pandemic. So after sitting on that for a few days, I started to think, well, I've got a great relationship with them, the owner and the chief operating officer. What if I pitch an idea where we can start a new separate company, leveraging their business but keeping it separate, and inserting me as kind of the worker bee to get it all done. So they bit on that idea, and I stopped being a consultant to Magnet and started becoming the president of Buckeye Mask.
So, I mean, that's a whirlwind of things happening all at once, right? The pandemic hits, and it's almost a collaborative manufacturing effort that we probably haven't seen since World War II, of just this ask of everyone coming together and working in whatever capacity they have to solve this problem. You've got to source equipment, you start the company, you've got to find the labor, you've got to build out the structure of the company, all doing that at the same time. I mean, so much of the story revolves around collaboration, leveraging the expertise of others. How did you, I mean, you kind of walk through the timeline of the chronology, I guess, of how you pulled the people and resources together, but like, how did you really like pull all those people and resources together to be able to respond to that opportunity?
Yeah, it was a lot of great Zoom meetings, I guess. I was lucky enough to know a lot of the manufacturers in Ohio, the ones focusing on sewn products, and the suppliers of raw materials, cottons for masks. So certainly I was on the phone with them a whole heck of a lot in those early weeks. My partner's company, they have such deep HR and sourcing and logistics support that I was able to tap right into that sort of a mini company within an existing company, which helped a lot. And then our partners down in Stitches, they have a separate business that does high volume parts manufacturing. So they were really well versed in the engineering side, and as well as the Adler company that actually made the machineries. We had weekly calls to troubleshoot things that were happening with the machines once they landed, but it was an incredibly fast period of designing an automated system and then having it landed. There was no testing involved. All the testing and adjustments were made on site as we were trying to ramp up production. So everybody just jumped in and was helpful, and it was a really amazing experience.
So you've kind of brought up the machines several times here, so I know you kind of geek out about this kind of stuff. Tell us about these machines in particular and what it took to get them here and get them running and get them doing what they needed to do.
Yeah, well, I think everybody thinks of a standard sewing machine in sort of a sewing context, but these machines are, while they have sewing heads on them, they have pullers and feeders and pleaters and irons and knives that all configure relatively seamlessly to load raw materials in one end and then spit out masks at the other. And the operators were trained to add the inputs and monitor to make sure the system was working correctly. But they're beautiful, efficient machines. Really a pinnacle of German manufacturing, and they're really fun to run. So, I have a real soft spot in my heart for my machines.
So, you've leveraged your resources and your networks in the sewing community to find the right pieces and parts to get this kind of overall machine making masks in motion, and you've got the literal machines to do so. What about you? How did your expertise as an entrepreneur, as a founder, weigh into the equation, and what specific leadership skills did you need to rely on or to tap into to kind of cultivate and ramp all this up so quickly?
Yeah, I think most entrepreneurs that I've met, and certainly myself, I'm just game to roll up my sleeves and try anything new and learn it, being really cognizant that I didn't know a lot of this in the beginning, but with some time and effort, anything is learnable. So I think that kind of mindset of approaching the startup of a company or the problems that continued to pop up throughout the production cycle, just getting in there and trying to understand it, talking to people, connecting ideas from one side of the aisle to the other was really where my skill set became most fruitful.
I know that part of the success of this initiative and getting everything up and running and then producing the required number of masks and meeting those goals, a lot of that relied on automation and being able to have, a defined workflow and process for all this. Why was automating that so important, and how did you go about finding the right workflows to make this all work?
Well, I think we were initially heading towards automation just because of the scale and the speed that was required to get the product into the hands of Ohioans, and certainly learning from my partners and their challenges finding and training sewers who are individually manned sewing machines. That's been a problem for years, trying to find those types of skilled workers. Using the machinery and training on an automated system was a little less daunting than, quadrupling, quintupling the workforce numbers and trying to bring them in the door. We just didn't think we could bring them in.
Hiring workers, putting together supply chain needs, big challenge in the middle of a pandemic when people are staying home or you've got to find them, you've got to train them. How did you coordinate the talent and supply chain? That's not even easy in a normal economy, no. or certainly right now in a quasi post-pandemic economy, but right then in the middle of the pandemic, what was that like? How did you do that?
Yeah, it was just a lot of legwork and leveraging National Safety Apparel's HR department, using some staffing companies that brought people in the door. We used Towards Employment for a couple folks who they do employment services and were able to send us some people. It was a huge challenge, and we had a lot of turnover because people would get sick and various things happen in their lives where they weren't with us the whole project. But luckily, we had a good core group that was able to learn it fast and train the new employees to keep us moving. And then as for supply chain, we were lucky to find a really great supplier, again out of Germany, of our cottons, and they gave us great pricing and quality, but we hit a few lumps and bumps in the middle of the project trying to get containers over of our finished material from them, and we're even basically hours away from running out at one point, and we had to end up buying more supply of different materials so that our project was ultimately cost us more just so that we could make sure that we continued to produce all the way through. So it wasn't easy, and it's still, I think a lot of folks are still feeling the pain of, staffing and supply chain.
So a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're starting out, launching a company, developing their product or their solution or their service, there's a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of worrying and thinking about, okay, what are we going to do next and where are we going to go next? You didn't even have the luxury of time. A lot of entrepreneurs, it's okay. Let's get to the next milestone. Let's get to the next hurdle. You were just kind of in it from the get-go. How did you keep moving forward? What motivated you to just keep pushing with all these challenges and the idea that, like you just mentioned, you were kind of on the cusp of not being able to meet milestones and things like that, but you didn't really have a choice with this. It was like, let's keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. Like personally and emotionally, how do you stay in that and keep going?
Well, it was incredibly energizing to feel part of something that was much bigger than anything I'd been part of previously. Having that demand from Ohio, ultimately getting a contract for 10 million masks, really kept me motivated that I better show up and be there almost every hour that my employees were on site. But I think what really allowed me to go deep into this project was my family stepping up to really help. My husband ended up staying home from work for several, one day a week, and I had grandparents taking over kid duties, so I could really focus on what I promised my partners and Magnet and the state that I'd be able to do. So having that support system was just absolutely critical and kept me sane through it all.
So I think, Carla, if there's a theme of all of this, it's that having a network that you can leverage in all aspects of your life, whether it's your family or whether it's a professional network, and knowing the resources that you can lean on and depend on, locally or internationally, has been really valuable and a key component to your success. Looking back at this wild ride, if you could change one or two things, what would they be?
I think there's one particular thing that I wish we'd understood more in the frantic pace of trying to get the machinery designed. We ended up going with a configuration of a mask that ties behind the head, which ultimately became less of what the market was interested in wearing. I still stand by it because we were tasked with designing something that was launderable for many washes and would fit every single head shape, and we nailed that. But we didn't understand where the market was going because there just wasn't a mask market when we started. So looking back, I would love to have incorporated some variety in the mask configuration, which we discussed initially, but just at the pace we had to pick something and move forward, so we did. So that's probably the main thing that I would change. I think otherwise it was hard, but everybody stepped up and got it done.
I've got to imagine that the decision-making process is so difficult when you're working with such speed and urgency. This was really, I don't want to call it like boom and bust, because it's not that. It was more like explosive, but a short-term endeavor to get all this going. So what did you learn about running your company, about running a company, and being a founder through this process, and maybe even about yourself?
Well, that speed that decisions get made in startups, I think you just have to be ready to pick one and hope it's the best, but use your informed decision making and your partner's thoughts on the thing you're trying to make the decision about, to be able to just continue to move forward, because at the very least, you'll learn something from it, and hopefully it's the right decision. And then what I learned about myself, I learned that I can run automated equipment. So that was not something that I had ever aspired to or thought I'd be involved in. But just learning that I can learn things still, despite being out of school for so many years, and not having to know everything on day one, is giving me the freedom to continue to think broadly about where I want my career to go next.
So it seems you're very comfortable in the uncomfortable. I think most founders or entrepreneurs have to be. And you partnered on this Buckeye Mask project as well. I mean, you're a co-founder. How did you find someone willing to share this risk that was as comfortable with the uncomfortable as you were going into this?
Well, my two partners are the owner of National Safety Apparel and the chief operating officer. And I think they were happy for me to take on the personal risk, the sleepless nights, and they knew that they had the expertise in their back pocket, so they could leverage that, and brought that to the table and brought a ton of support for me to keep me moving forward throughout the whole project.
And then I don't think I asked this when we were going through your story here, but how did you raise the funds to meet the state's desire to produce all these masks?
Yeah, I've been an investor for probably the last 14 years since moving back to Cleveland, and was able to bring some capital to the table. My partners as well were in the position to do the same. So we, while we got a loan for the equipment, there was still significant startup costs with finding our supplies of raw materials and staffing before we started to bring in any revenue, which took several months. So it was, and we actually, when we started the company, we had no idea that we would, there was no guarantee that we'd actually get a contract from the state. So we knew we were stepping up to the table.
Very comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, we were going to lose a big chunk of change if we didn't get a contract. But we felt that with what my partner was doing and selling to the private market, and our some indications from the state that they were starting to think about producing or purchasing large volumes from Ohio manufacturers beyond that initial million, gave us enough comfort to just jump in and do it and try it out.
So, man, that's such a big jump, and I'm so glad that it paid off for you. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs that are kind of on the precipice and they've got an idea and they want to make that leap, but they're just teetering and they're not sure?
Well, I think it boils down to risk, and when you don't know what's coming, you face an unidentified amount of risk. You might do financial modeling and understand what it's going to cost to bring your idea to life. And I guess the way I've looked at it every time I've set up a company is, okay, I'm going to invest X amount of my own money and Y amount of my own sweat equity, and at the expense of anything else I could be doing, or a standard paycheck coming in. And that, I look at it that I'm not so worried about my money and my time that I bring to the table, but I look at the fact that I'm going to have a return on my investment no matter what, even if it's risky, because I'll walk away learning more than what I initially came to the table with. And I think if entrepreneurs are comfortable with getting some kind of learning that they can then leverage into the next company or the next opportunity, that can give people freedom to make that big risky leap to start something new.
Wise words, and very encouraging, especially as a serial entrepreneur. I know that you are always ready to take that next jump, that next risk. Hopefully, this pandemic won't last forever. I think, I don't want to jinx everything. I'm going to knock all the wood that is around me, but I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And your mask making days may be behind you. So what's next for Carla Macklin?
Yeah, well, with the company, we're still looking for contracts, but certainly they become less and less available, and we're really looking for a sweet spot of mass, a purchaser of mask at volume that they're buying on behalf of another population. So masks have become like socks. Everybody's kind of required to wear them, but they have their own personal preferences, and they're cheap enough that there's probably no governmental entities that are going to be really doing this for much longer. So we're trying to figure out what we do with the equipment, and can we turn that into something else. But I'm back working on Direct Rec and looking to increase user engagement and learnings from that launch, because we did finally just recently get it out the door and onto Apple devices. So that feels good. And I'm just really interested in continuing to move forward and think about cool ideas. My 11-year-old daughter said to me this morning as I walked out the door, she said, you should make some Zoom shirts that, you don't have to have a belly. You just make a shirt that just covers the top half. And she actually told me this morning. I thought, okay, well, I'll think on that, and maybe that will be the next idea. But always watching, always got my ears open for opportunities. So
believe it or not, that's what I'm wearing right now. Nobody knows.
I believe it.
That's awesome. Carla, we're going to take a little break. and hear from one of the collaborators in your project and a Jumpstart partner, Magnet. They're going to fill us in on some exciting opportunities in the advanced manufacturing space. When we come back, I've got the lightning round for you, my Fast 5 questions. So we'll tackle those in just a minute.
Great. Thanks, Freddie.
Thanks, Freddie. My name's Alex Simon. I'm the Director of Startup Services at Magnet. Magnet is a nonprofit in Northeast Ohio supporting small and medium-sized manufacturers as well as entrepreneurs. My team specifically works with entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, innovators within larger manufacturers that want to create new products or new services or new business models. So we help these entrepreneurs and innovators in 3 ways, really. 1, by providing technical expertise. 2, by providing or helping to facilitate access to demand. And 3, by helping to facilitate access to funding. As it relates to technical expertise, my team at Magnet helps innovators every day identify what their most critical assumption is and how to go about testing that critical assumption most quickly and most cost effectively. We do that by leveraging our team's expertise, but also the expertise of the broader Magnet team. So we've got engineers that have a combined 150 years of experience helping manufacturers to build new products, to prototype, to do custom automation. We have an operations team that's skilled in helping companies to scale up, helping them to set up their supply chain. We've got a sales and marketing team that helps manufacturers and helps entrepreneurs to create go-to-market strategies, to create sales pipelines. So our team is able to leverage all of that combined experience to help entrepreneurs and innovators in Northeast Ohio. We also work to facilitate access to demand, helping to find customers for your product. And finally, we help with access to funding. So we help you to define who the right sources of capital are, helping you to meet venture capitalists, helping you to figure out what grants make the most sense for you. As part of the work we're doing, we're really excited about a new partnership we have with Jumpstart, the Youngstown Business Incubator, YBI, and Team Neo to help amplify the services that all of our organizations are able to provide to manufacturing startups and innovators. By leveraging what each organization does best, whether that's manufacturing and engineering support, additive support and strategy support, helping to facilitate access to funding, or finding sites or customers for your product, we're able to leverage what each organization does best to provide the best service we can to advanced and additive manufacturing startups in Northeast Ohio. To get connected to Magnet or any of our partners, reach out to me by email. My email is on the screen. It's asimon@manufacturingsuccess.org. Thanks.
All right, and we're back with serial entrepreneur Carla Macklin, co-founder of Buckeye Mask. Carla, we are at the end of our time together, so I've got Freddie's Fast 5 lightning round questions for you. Now, here's how it goes. I've got actually 6 questions. You've got to answer 5, so you have 1 pass. You can use it anywhere in any questions, but if you use it on the first one, then you've got to answer all the ones after that. So a little bit of pressure, but not too much. All right, so let's kick it off. Your story proves technology and collaboration can solve big problems. If you could pick anything, what would be the next global crisis that you would solve?
I've been thinking about this one for a while. Senior caregiving. Watching what happens in the market with adaptive clothing and now watching how professionals make recommendations to make life easier for people who return home from surgery or are aging in place. I think there's so much demand on physical one-on-one support, and I think that is a nut that I've been thinking about a long time and I'd love to crack.
Incredibly important right now with an aging population and just the state of things. I have that was a very serious question. And now I've got a really lighthearted one for you. You're a savvy businesswoman, but if money didn't matter, what crazy idea would you pursue? And you can't say Zoom half shirt.
Oh boy, that's one that I haven't let myself think because I live in a real world. I'm a realist. I'd love to. I'd love to do something with travel. I don't know how that would. Struggling to try to think through what that would turn into a business idea. But to be able to move around the world more easily and experience things more efficiently and cheaply, maybe that would be something that I'd love to do, just to get out of the house, because I've been there too much recently.
We all have, right? Describe your proudest moment or achievement as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the moment of shipping out that 6 millionth mask. We made 6 million in the whole production cycle that we just experienced. That was. I just remember feeling entirely exhausted and so grateful for the people who were there on that last day, pushing forward with me. It really. I took a moment and kind of internalized what had happened and felt like, okay, I get to now have some time off and be really excited and proud about what I've done. So
you mentioned earlier that you are also an investor in addition to founding multiple companies. What's the weirdest idea you've been pitched?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer that because there may be people listening. But there's lots of, I get pitched a lot of different sewn products for very specialized purposes. And, they're definitely head scratchers of why they think this market exists and that they're the right ones to bring this random sewn product to life. So I'm not going to specifically say anything because I do have a few that are a little weird, but I don't want to call anybody out. But there's a lot in the sewn.
I'm going to be very strict here, and I'm going to say that was your past, so you've got to answer the last two.
Okay.
You have founded multiple companies. You have to love being an entrepreneur, I would think, or you wouldn't keep doing it. But what's your least favorite thing about entrepreneurship?
I dabbled in a little bit of fundraising, and luckily I haven't needed to get that seed funding from anybody else, but that has been really painful in trying to convince people to invest when things are so nebulous still. And so I think that's been my least favorite part. And if I am successful in future endeavors, I'll have to get more used to that and get over my fear.
Okay, I've got to get my prop here for the last one. So I'm going DIY for the holidays this year.
Nice.
What should I make people? 6 million masks.
Oh boy, what do you make? Well, I am going to be making some. This is an idea I stole off of Instagram. And I shouldn't let you know because these are going to be hopefully Christmas presents under the tree. But I saw this really cool idea for a magnetic tag that goes on a purse that you can just magnetize your purse to a stall of a bathroom stall in a public restroom or somewhere so it doesn't fall on the floor and get all dirty and gross. So that's one of the things that's on my sewing table for the holidays. But yeah.
Well, spoiler to everybody, but they know what they're getting now.
Yeah. Well, it's not my idea. I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was a clever thing and a simple thing to sew.
Carla, thank you so much for joining us today. You're officially off the lightning round hot seat and all other hot seats. And if the seat was too hot, then we would just sew something to put on top of it. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck as a tech entrepreneur in your new endeavors. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and look to see continued big things from you in the future.
Thanks, Freddie. I hope so.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. We hope that you'll join us next month on Wednesday, December 15th, for the next episode of Founders Unfiltered, featuring David Edelman, founder of Thrivable, a real-time research platform that aims to put patients at the center of healthcare product development. We'll talk to David about his knack for finding solutions that create transformational change and his tips on how to navigate your entrepreneurial journey. And of course, we want to make sure you know that Jumpstart combines capital, services, and connections to help entrepreneurs grow. and we are here and ready and waiting to help. You can get your entrepreneurial journey started today at jumpstartinc.org/apply. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month on Founders Unfiltered.